If you're in construction, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Constructive Behaviors Podcast. I'm your host, Barb Allen. I'm a woman with decades of experience in the construction industry, and most of it on the job site. I know how rewarding this industry can be. But like you, I also know that we could improve. Let's work together to make changes from the inside out. Do you ever feel like you are two totally different people? You have two completely different personalities, one that you use at work and one that you use in your personal life. I was listening to an episode of the Laying Foundations podcast the other day, and they had a guest on there who mentioned the phrase #NoGate. I'd not heard that phrase before. And the first thing that came to my mind, as many of you, when you think about a gate related to construction, is a union, non-union job with gates. And if you're not that familiar with construction gates, what that means is sometimes when jobs have both union and non-union workers, gates are required in which union workers walk through a specific gate to access the job site, and non-union workers have to walk through a separate gate. So when I heard #NoGate initially, I thought they were probably talking about a let's all get along theme. But he wasn't. As I continued to listen, I realized that that wasn't the context in which he was using it at all. Instead, he was talking about a metaphorical gate, one that's in our minds that we walk through twice a day as we walk onto and off of our job sites. And while, yes, there's a physical gate, I was completely intrigued by the mental gate he was referring to. Now, the guest was specifically talking about men feeling the need to turn off their personal lives, their struggles, emotions, and put on the quote unquote manly construction mindset and demeanor that is traditionally expected from construction workers. He's talking about men setting aside their relationship skills used with spouses, kids, family, and friends in order to instead project the I have no feelings, I am in charge, let's just get the job done attitude. And although I can't speak to the mental gate that men may feel, and 100% transparency, I was blown away by the concept that they even feel that. Like, it never crossed my mind that men may feel like they have to be someone different as they walk onto a job site. It never crossed my mind that men may actually, the men on the job site I was working with, may not actually act those ways when they're home. And although I can't talk about the mental gate that men may feel, what I can talk about is the one that myself and many women encounter as we walk onto job sites. And I'll warn you, this is probably the most vulnerable episode that I have delivered so far. When I first heard him say #NoGate and realized what he was talking about, I felt my body freeze. I realized I had stopped breathing. I was holding my breath, and I started to feel tears welling up in the back of my eyes. He was describing what I have felt my entire career. And I thought I was alone. I didn't think anyone else ever felt that way. I felt like an anomaly, someone who had to go to work and pretend to be someone completely different. And him saying that made me realize I wasn't alone. At work, through the years, I have played construction Barb. Construction Barb is confident, steadfast, unbreakable, and a force to be reckoned with. Construction Barb gets pulled into offices and told she's difficult to work with. But that's not who I was when I entered the industry. I was quiet, constantly second-guessing myself, afraid to speak up, and overly accommodating. But I was only on the job site for a few months when it became very clear those weren't traits that were going to get me to the superintendent position. Those weren't traits that were going to make me successful in construction. And I had to figure out, how was I going to become, or at least portray, the person that would become successful in construction? I remember the first time I actually heard someone call me Construction Barb. I was skiing in Colorado with my now ex-husband and his brother and friends, and I fell on a slope, and his brother skied past me and sprayed me with snow. I sprayed him back with pretty much every cuss word I could think of. And then he stopped and I heard him say, "I think I just met Construction Barb," which is interesting because I'd known him for several years at this point. But the reality is there are very few people in my life who have seen both sides, who've seen Construction Barb and regular Barb. The guys at work were completely surprised that when I would get home, I didn't want to make decisions. I didn't want to be in charge. I was exhausted. I made decisions all day long. I just wanted to go home and have someone else decide where we were going to go for dinner, or what we were going to have, or what we were going to do that weekend. I mean, that's just one side of being someone different. And there's so many things different between my work personality and my personal personality. I remember one time after I got a divorce, I was in a divorce group at church. And I'd been going for several months. And finally, one of the instructors pulled me aside one day and said, "You're just so quiet." Like, no one who actually knows me would think that I'm quiet. But that's not true. No one at work would have thought I was quiet. It is extremely exhausting having separate work and personal personas. And there are times that you truly struggle to figure out which one is you, which one is really you. Because we all change through the years, right? But who am I today? Which of these qualities have become who I am? And which ones am I still pretending to be me? Going back to the interview guest referring to men when he was talking about the hashtag no gate, made me think more about what men go through and the possibility of this gate, this mental gate that they experience. I started thinking more about the reputation or the stigma around who a construction worker is. And the 5 things that initially come to my mind when I think of what other people may think a construction worker is 1, a quote unquote manly man, someone who's likely to enjoy inappropriate jokes. They don't have feelings. They don't bring their personal life to work, and they bark orders and to establish their place in the hierarchy. This means there's no room on a job site for thoughts or discussion about your cousin who was just diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. There's not room to think about your aunt who is fighting for her life after brain surgery. And there's no room to think about your best friend, your 16-year-old dog who took his last breath over the weekend. These are all things that I personally experienced and yet kept mostly to myself so that coworkers wouldn't feel sorry for me. There was a time a couple of years ago, we had a double family tragedy all within a month. I lost my aunt and I lost my 40-year-old cousin. There were only about 2 people at work that I told what was going on. One was the owner of the company, because I felt he needed to know why I was away from work as much as I was sitting at KU Med next to my aunt's bed. The other was one person that I worked with, a man who could tell something was going on. But it's kind of bullshit. Like, I have felt like I couldn't display what was going on in my life because it would make me look weak, or it would make people feel sorry for me, which would make me look weak. And the idea that it's not just me, and the idea that it's not just women, that men also feel that a construction job site is not a safe place to take your personal, quote unquote, baggage, is bullshit. We should be able to humanize the job site. We should be able to be who we are. We have bad days. And so many times we just are like, that guy's being an asshole today, or this week, or this month. But we don't take the time to figure out why. He could be the one experiencing a really difficult time in his personal life, but because we haven't asked, it is just bottled up. A few months ago, I heard that construction was the number 2 industry for suicide-related deaths. I have to think that the mental gate plays a role in that statistic. I don't have the answers on how to eliminate it, but I think we have to start. We have to start recognizing that it even exists so that we can work together to eliminate that gate. #NoGate.